So
Why did you stumble on Winnipeg?
why did I stumble on Winnipeg?
Yeah.
That's a story, man. So okay, I'm going to share here, but this is the first time I've kind of spoken about this publicly. So I grew up, born and raised in Ottawa. I grew up there, and growing up, I was a pretty high achieving child. Like I was, I got straight A's in school, and I played competitive sports, and I was like a very, polite, well mannered kid. And um, when I got to high school, I just kind of fell in with the wrong crowd and developed the wrong habits, and I started smoking weed really early, like really young, and skipping class, and it kind of blossomed into like a full blown addiction by the time I was in my late teens and early 20s. Like I was like a full blown alcoholic, and at that point in my life, towards the end of my using career, we'll call it, I was kicked out of my parents' house. I'd burned a lot of bridges with friends. Like nobody really wanted to hang out with me anymore. I was broke. I hadn't completed high school, and I was just kind of like sitting in rooming houses, just drinking all the time, right? Like I had a pretty bad drinking problem. It was like to the point of, I'm waking up in the morning, like shaking, like I needed to drink to like kind of get through the day, right? Like, cause it was like to the point of physical withdrawals, right?
Damn.
And that went on for a while. And one day I just woke up and, I kind of reached this point where it was like, if I carry on like this, I'm going to either kill myself or end up dead anyways, because I was slowly killing myself through booze. Or, I can give myself a shot at having a good life, because I knew that I had potential, right? And that was the toughest thing going through my addiction, was that I knew I had potential, right? Like, I know I can achieve and excel in school, right? I know, like, I have good ideas when it comes to, money-making business ventures or whatever, right? Like I can make something of myself, right? This is not how I'm not gonna go out sad like this, right?
Yeah.
So it was, gonna either kill myself, end up dead, or I can give myself a shot. So I called my mom, and I told her, like, look, I need help, right? And she made a couple of phone calls, and she found this treatment center it's in Gimli. It's kind of like an hour outside of the city.
Okay.
She said there's this treatment center there. They have a detox there, because I needed to be have a supervised medical detox to come off the liquor.
Sure.
And if you're on a plane, you can go tomorrow. Because I couldn't get into any treatment centers in Ottawa. The waiting lists are crazy long for publicly funded treatment centers. It's insane.
Wow.
Yeah. And the detox in the Ottawa hospital wouldn't take me. So that was kind of my only option if I wanted to sober up like that, right? And I couldn't go 8 hours without having a drink. So I was like, yeah, sure. Why not?
How'd you come to that decision that you wanted to change?
Immense amounts of pain.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Addiction is, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It's a horrible, horrible thing to go through. It's a very dark, lonely, miserable existence, right?
Yeah.
Because you're stuck. It's a little kind of like a ball and chain situation, right? I'd wake up in the morning and I'm not drinking today. Like, we're gonna kick it today, right? But then the physical and the mental aspect kicks in, and by the time, if I woke up around 8 and I start to get sick by the time it's noon, it's excruciatingly painful, right? Like, you're shaking, anxiety, like you're sweating, you can't keep water down, like it's terrible, terrible, terrible feeling. But you have this voice in the back of your head that's like, if you just have a drink, like you'll feel better.
Yeah.
So it's really tough to power through that, and that's why I say it's one of the worst things ever, because it's like it's a constant revolving door of hell, right? You wake up and this is not what I want with my life, but you can't help it, right? It's tough. Yeah.
That's a powerful story, man. And first of all, thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
sharing
absolutely.
it publicly. Like, it's not easy to talk about. But I want to go back to the idea of where you said you see that potential in yourself, but yet you're completely going against it, right?
Right.
You were a high achiever in school. You were athletic. You had that life balance, and now you're going the other way. Trying to convince yourself that, hey, like, in addiction, there's that part of me that I know can go through. Talk about the self-doubt, but then overcoming that self-doubt to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, I mean, I think the self-doubt and kind of the self-loathing with addiction, it kind of compounds, right? As the snowball continues to get bigger and bigger and you kind of become more and more submerged in the problem, your perception of yourself worsens, right? It took a while, man, you know? But when I first sobered up, it was like just doing the little things, right? Because I had kind of, for lack of better terms, been a degenerate for, 7 or 8 years of my life, right? So now I'm doing things that make me a responsible adult, right? I'm going and paying for my own groceries. I'm paying for my own rent, right? Like I'm holding a job. Like I'm able to keep up with my responsibilities. I'm not bailing on people to go get drunk or high or missing the family functions and just full of shame from my actions, right? Like I'm accomplishing things, relatively small things, but I'm starting to make progress, right? And it's those little steps of progress that kind of build back up your self-esteem. And to be honest, getting involved in the jewelry flipping, that was right around the time when I was sobering up, actually. So I went to the treatment center and then I moved into what was called sober living house. So it's essentially like, imagine like a rooming house, right? But everybody is sober, right? And you have to abide by these rules. You have to, go to a meeting and you have to hold a job down and you have to make your bed and you have to piss clean, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially the premise of it. So I was living there, and that's when I sold my first chain. Was when I was living there. Yeah.
As someone who said that you don't do well with authority and like having people telling you what to do, what was it like living in that sober house when people are like, you have to do this, you can't do that? What was that?
I did not get along with the guy who ran it. Good guy. His name was Wayne, but yeah, he was a very bossy. Like he had a super deep voice, and he would just kind of yell at you. And yeah, man, that was tough. But you're in a position where you're like, okay, my actions over the past 7 or 8 years absolutely decimated my own life, right? So maybe it's time that, I realize Kiran doesn't know everything, and it's time to take some direction from other people, right? Sorry.
Everything that happened in my life, it's because of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what was that like for you?
100% self-inflicted.
Yeah.
I think I just compounded with the shame of it all, right?
Yeah.
Because
Like, who do you blame?
I didn't really have an excuse,
Yeah.
right? Like I
Yeah.
met a lot of people in treatment who, they're born to very unfortunate circumstances, abusive homes or,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Sure.
And then I can understand, right? You grew up in a really negative environment like that. Like all I had growing up, I came from a good family. Like we weren't rich, we weren't poor. Like, I just had a father who was like very, very, put a lot of pressure on me to excel in life. That was it, and this is what I've done with that pressure, right? So it's kind of, it was embarrassing, right? And I was kind of hesitant to speak about this topic a little bit today because I feel like with addiction, there's such a big stigma around it, but I guess I did want to touch on it a bit because I want people to know that like your past does not define you, right? You are not your past, right? You're able to grow and change from it, and you shouldn't be ashamed, of the mistakes you've made in your life, right? It's all part of the process.
And this is the true effort of what you've done over the years, right? Like you've battled your worst demons to get to the spot that you are in right now.
Essentially, yeah.
What does that feel like?
I mean, like I said, man, like I'm pretty hard on myself, right? So it's, very rarely do I stop and give myself a pat on the back, and I think part of that is how I was raised, right? It was always, it's never good enough. You can always do better, right? And I feel like that mentality has been hammered into my head. But there's times where it feels good, especially when I have feedback from, friends from back home or other family members, and they're kind of like, well, wow, you've accomplished so much, you've came so far. And when I stop and think, and once in a while you got to stop and smell the roses, right? And then I can feel like a little bit proud of myself, but not for too long because we always have to, always got to keep going, right?
Right.
Yeah, we talked briefly before we started recording here, but those are the moments that got you to where you are today, right? The way, the things that everyone goes through, even minor or major, those are what lead you to where you are today. They make you the person you are, the way that you act, the way you interact with people. And I want to commend you on your journey as well, because there's a lot of people who may not have made that call to their mom or to the person that they care, or may not even had that realization, and that maybe just listening to this is enough for them to be like, okay, there's something there, right? And I commend you on that, right? Because it's not easy to look and tell people that, yo, listen, I messed up. I was not in the spot that I was.
No, absolutely.
Right? It's
Yeah.
not easy at all. And especially the way that you run your business here and the success that you've had. Respect, brother.
Appreciate it,
Respect.
man.